We've heard from the beginning, as Ruth and Dino have said. And what I'm now thinking on is, how do we respond? What can I do? And before I start, because I think that'll be the easiest, I have a gift for someone which I felt the Lord telling me that this was to be part of an illustration of our response. And the person I'm giving it to has no idea what's in it, so I'm going to trust that her response will enable me to carry on speaking. Yes, please.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Lovely, thank you very much.
And the Lord is in it, because how does it not match the colour that she's wearing today?
Sorry, what did you say?
It matches your jumper.
Oh, yes.
It matches what you're wearing today, isn't it?
Like very much. Beautiful. Cozy.
It's nice when someone is delighted at your gift. It's nice when you have made something, you have done something, and the response is thank you. Isaiah chapter 61 is a prophecy of the Lord's coming. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness of the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendour. And just as Sheila is kind of wrapped in the scarf now, that's a very simple illustration of how the Lord wants us to be clothed with his righteousness, so that we would have beauty for ashes, that we would have the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Despair is around at the moment, and even more so in these past few days. Just before we left the house, Jason Leach was on, and he was speaking how 21 days ago the Omicron strain did not exist. And look at what's happening now. And all of this God knew in advance. And so he wants us to make a response. But I thought, what did Jesus do? What was Jesus' response to coming as a baby, to living on earth? I think it was Ruth who said he had to learn to walk again. And he came, as Dino was saying, to a fallen world from the heavenly places where he was. He came down to earth. And Jesus responded by being baptized by John. And then, after his baptism, and after being tempted by Satan in the wilderness, Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread through the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. he went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. He didn't pick it up, it was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." And although this year to us can't seem as if it's a year of the Lord's favour, Jesus came. Jesus died for us in order that each year for us can be a year of the Lord's favour. And as the people of Israel, the first prophecy was for them because they had been in captivity, and after 70 years they were going to come back. The response of Jesus is that we might know the oil of joy for gladness, that we wouldn't have a heavy heart, that we would know that he wants to give us beauty for ashes. He wants to clothe us, if you like, even now, before we reach heaven, in his righteousness. He wants us to put on like a garment each day. And we can do that by acknowledging him, by thanking him for the gift that we acknowledge came at Christmas in Jesus Christ, by singing his praises. New every morning is his love. So he just wants us to be clothed, if you like, in him each day, each moment of the day, so that when we do go through the tough times, he's there for us. He's just a whisper away. Sometimes we forget that we only have to whisper and say, God, and he hears that. So he wants to be there for us. And then because of all that's gone before, and because of what Dino was talking about, I just feel that we should finish by reading Revelations 22, and it's entitled Eden Restored. Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. Down the middle of the great street of the city, on each side of the river, stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. There will be no more night. They will not need the light of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. And if we accept God's gift of his Son, Jesus, into our lives, then we will know that life with him forever and ever.